U.S. threatens to cut Ukraine's Starlink access over minerals dispute. In a controversial move, U.S. negotiators have reportedly threatened to terminate Ukraine's access to SpaceX's Starlink satellite internet service unless Kyiv agrees to grant the U.S. significant rights to Ukraine's critical minerals. Starlink has been essential for Ukraine's military communications and civilian infrastructure, especially after Russian attacks disrupted traditional networks. The potential shutdown could severely impact Ukraine's defense capabilities and daily operations. Despite recent public disputes between President Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, both nations are reportedly close to finalizing an agreement that would grant the U.S. access to valuable Ukrainian mineral rights in exchange for continued American military support against Russia. The deal, which could be signed imminently, aims to bolster U.S.-Ukraine relations, significant resources including titanium, lithium, and rare earth elements. Please stay tuned for more analysis regarding the minerals deal between Ukraine and the United States. U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine General Keith Kellogg has lauded President Zelenskyy as an embattled and courageous leader. During his visit to Kyiv, this supportive stance contrasts sharply with President Trump's recent criticisms, where he labeled Zelenskyy a dictator and suggested Ukraine initiated the Russian invasion of Ukraine. These conflicting messages from U.S. leadership have raised concerns among European allies about the consistency of U.S. foreign policy. President Trump's recent critical remarks about Ukraine and President Zelenskyy have sparked a divide within conservative circles. While some support Trump's stance, others express concern that distancing U.S. from Ukraine could embolden Russian aggression and undermine global democratic alliances. Hello, I'm Slavie, and this is Echoes of War News Brief on Yarochenko channel, where we break down the latest developments in Ukraine's fight for sovereignty, expose Russian disinformation, and discuss what it all means for the world. Here you get a Ukrainian-American perspective cutting through propaganda and political spin to bring you the truth about Ukraine's battle for survival and why it matters for United States, NATO, and global security. Today's updates cover major shifts in U.S.-Ukraine relations and ongoing struggle between truth and Kremlin-backed narratives. Join the conversation, drop your thoughts in the chat, and if you're new here, welcome. Hit that subscribe button, give that video a like, and share it with others who need to hear the truth. Now, let's dive into today's top stories. Secret U.S.-Russia talks exclude Ukraine. Reports have emerged that American and Russian officials have engaged in undisclosed negotiations in Switzerland concerning the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine. Notably, Ukrainian representatives were absent from these discussions, leading to concerns about the transparency and intentions behind these talks. The exclusion of Ukraine from negotiations about its own sovereignty has been met with criticisms from both Ukrainian officials and international observers. European Union leaders are planning a 20 billion aid package to bolster Ukraine's defenses and economy. This initiative underscores Ukraine's commitment to supporting Ukraine amid ongoing Russian aggression and aims to fill potential gaps left by shifting U.S. policies. The EU is advancing plans to repurpose 300 billion in frozen Russian assets to aid Ukraine. These funds, immobilized in European financial institutions since Russia's 2022 invasion, are set to finance Ukraine's reconstruction, and defense efforts. This strategy not only holds Russia financially accountable for its aggression, but also provides a substantial resource for Ukraine's recovery. The European Parliament has approved up to 35 billion in loans to Ukraine to be repaid using revenues generated from these frozen assets. This approach ensures that the aggressor contributes directly to remedying the devastation it caused. European troops in Ukraine, a divisive prospect? The debate over deploying European Union forces to Ukraine has intensified, revealing a continent divided on the issue. Recent discussions in Paris highlighted significant divisions among member states. Potential scenarios include comprehensive peacekeeping mission, a substantial force to monitor ceasefires and protect infrastructure, limited deployment, smaller contingents providing training and logistical support, symbolic presence, minimal forces serving as a diplomatic signal of commitment. Countries like United Kingdom, France, and Belgium advocate for deployment, emphasizing the need for a collective approach and, in some cases, U.S. security guarantees. Nations such as Poland and Germany expressed caution, citing concerns over escalation and the necessity of a reliable ceasefire before considering troop deployments. As discussions of a potential ceasefire gain momentum, analysts question whether dictator Putin is genuinely seeking peace or merely buying time to regroup his forces. The international community remains cautious, emphasizing the need for any agreement to include robust security guarantees for Ukraine. Washington's embrace of Putin aims to drive wedge between Moscow and Beijing. In a strategic shift, President Trump has enthusiastically embraced Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, aiming to disrupt the strong alliance between Russia and China. This approach seeks to replicate a reverse Nixon strategy, reminiscent of the 70s U.S. policy that deepened the divide between China and Soviet Union. However, experts caution that the current geopolitical landscape presents different challenges, as Russia and China have fortified their military and economic ties since declaring no-limits partnership in 2022. Critics argue that attempting to split this alliance may be implausible and could inadvertently strain U.S. relations with European allies, especially given the recent reduction in support for Ukraine. China's aspirations to mediate the Russian invasion of Ukraine are complicated by its strategic interests with Russia and ongoing trade tensions with the U.S. While Beijing positions itself as a neutral party, critics argue that its close ties to Moscow and economic ambitions may hinder its effectiveness as a peacemaker. If the U.S. adopts an isolationist stance, China could expand its influence, potentially surpassing the U.S. as the leading global superpower, which may pose significant risks to American strategic interests. Ukraine's defense tech shapes the future. This week, Ukraine hosted the Defense Tech Innovations Forum 2025, the largest event in history of the Ukrainian defense industry. Over 3,000 attendees from 40 countries explored Ukraine's latest military breakthroughs, ranging from advanced UAVs and missile technology to electronic warfare systems. The forum highlighted Ukraine's $1.3 billion in grants already supporting defenses, startups, and over 1,500 new technology companies driving next-generation military innovation. As Ukraine battles against Russian aggression, its defenses industry is proving that it is not just fighting for survival, but actively shaping the future of global military technology. Zelenskyy holds strong as Trump's approval drops. Despite external pressures, Zelenskyy enjoys 63% approval in Ukraine, debunking Trump's false claim of 4%. Meanwhile, Trump's approval in the U.S. has dropped to 45%, with 53% disapproving. U.S. support for Ukraine remains strong, with 61% of Americans in favor of continued aid, while only 8% say they trust Putin. The truth. matters. The Trump administration and its allies are pushing Kremlin-backed narratives to justify abandoning Ukraine and rewriting history in Russia's favor. They want Americans to believe Ukraine is collapsing, corrupt, and undeserving of support. But, just like Russia's propaganda machine, these claims are lies, designed to weaken U.S. backing for Ukraine and hand Putin a victory he has not earned on the battlefield. Let's fact-check the disinformation and set the record straight. Russian narratives that Zelenskyy is about to lose all of Ukraine. Ukraine's defenses remain strong, with over 80% of its territory under control. Major cities have not fallen, and Ukrainian forces continue to repel Russian offensives. Ukraine has been completely destroyed, while Russia has heavily targeted civilian infrastructure. Kyiv, Lviv, Odessa, and most major cities remain functional and resilient. Ukraine is far from being wiped off the map. Zelenskyy is a dictator for refusing to hold elections. Ukrainian law prohibits elections during wartime. Unlike the U.S. Constitution, which mandates elections even during war, Ukraine's martial law does not allow voting until hostilities end. Europe isn't helping Ukraine, only the U.S. is paying. Well, the truth is, Europe provides just as much aid as the U.S. European nations have committed over $100 billion in military and financial aid, matching U.S. contributions. Ukraine is drowning in debt from European loans. The truth is, European loans to Ukraine are backed by income from frozen Russian assets, not Ukrainian taxpayers. Ukraine isn't being forced into long-term debt. Ukraine has misused or lost military aid. There is no evidence of widespread corruption or missing aid. Audits confirm over 99% of U.S. military aid is accounted for, with proper tracking of weapons and financial assistance. Ukraine refuses to negotiate peace with Russia. The truth is, Ukraine repeatedly invited Putin to negotiate in early 2022. Zelenskyy made multiple diplomatic efforts before and after the invasion, but Putin refused every offer and instead escalated the war. The Trump administration and Russian propagandists are pushing falsehoods to weaken U.S. support for Ukraine, because they know that a strong Ukraine is a threat to Putin's imperial ambitions. Facts matter. Truth matters. Don't let disinformation dictate the future of global security. You can have your own opinions, but not your own facts. As we push back against disinformation, we must also recognize how Ukraine is being pressured off the battlefield as well, through economic strong arming. That brings us to the ongoing minerals agreement negotiations, which could have massive implications for Ukraine's sovereignty. The proposed U.S. Ukraine minerals agreement has ignited intense debate, with critics likening the Trump administration's approach to mafia-style tactics. The deal, orchestrated by U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, a financier who no prior political or foreign policy experience, seeks significant control over Ukraine's valuable mineral resources in exchange for military aid. Ukraine has been there before. In 2013, Russia used economic blackmail to force Yanukovych to reject the EU trade deal, leading to the Revolution of Dignity. Now, a new kind of pressure is at play, except this time, it's coming from United States. Key aspects of the agreement. Resource allocation. The U.S. demands 50% stake in Ukraine's critical minerals, including titanium, lithium, and rare earth elements. These resources are essential for various industries, notably defense and technology. Security guarantees. Ukraine seeks firm defense commitments to counter Russian aggression. However, the current proposal lacks concrete assurances, raising concerns about the reliability of U.S. support. Economic implications. Ceding half of its mineral wealth could jeopardize Ukraine's long-term economic independence, potentially making it reliant on U.S. interests and undermining its sovereignty. Ethical and strategic considerations. Leveraging essential services. Reports suggest that U.S. negotiators have threatened to cut Ukraine's access to SpaceX's Starlink internet services unless the deal is accepted. Given Starlink's critical role in Ukraine's military and civilian communications, this tactic raises ethical questions about using essential infrastructure as a bargaining chip. Diplomatic relations. The aggressive nature of the U.S. proposals, the sense lack of diplomatic experience, may strain U.S.-Ukraine relations. Such an approach could be perceived as undermining Ukraine's sovereignty during a vulnerable period. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has emphasized the importance of ensuring the deal is equitable and beneficial for Ukraine. Concerns remain regarding the lack of security guarantees and the potential long-term impact on Ukraine's sovereignty. The international community is closely monitoring the situation this weekend, as the outcome of these negotiations could have far-reaching implications for U.S.-Ukraine relations and the broader geopolitical landscape and, of course, the outcome of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. In light of everything happening, I believe Ukraine needs a Lend-Lease agreement, one that lets Ukraine buy the weapons it needs without restrictions on how or where to use them. This isn't about favors, it's about ensuring Ukraine has the tools to win, defend itself, and remain sovereign. Right now, too many decisions about Ukraine's defense are being made outside of Ukraine, and that needs to change. This must happen because America still needs to make up for the Budapest Memorandum betrayal. Ukraine gave up its nuclear arsenal in exchange for security guarantees. But when Russia invaded twice, first in 2014 and then with a full-scale invasion in 2022, the world barely reacted. Those so-called guarantees meant nothing. Russia saw that the world betrayed Ukraine in 2014, let Crimea and Donbas fall, and took that as a green light to fully invade on February 24, 2022, which marks 3 years this weekend. So, if Ukraine faces a nuclear threat from Russia or any other enemy, it should have the right to restore its nuclear deterrent. That's not escalation, that's self-defense. Ukraine has access to uranium, and if the world won't uphold its promises, Ukraine must be able to protect itself by any means necessary. This isn't just about Ukraine, this is about global security. A strong, well-armed Ukraine is the best way to stop Russian aggression and prevent future wars. Because if Ukraine falls, you already know who's next. Standing with Ukraine on the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion.
Мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции.
Начали атаковать Киев. Фашисты!
Це моя рідна земля.
Снаряд, это просто пиздец.
Если у нас попытаются отнять нашу страну, нашу свободу, наши жизни, жизни наших детей, мы будем защищаться.
Three years ago this weekend, on February 24th, 2022, the world watched in shock as Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Missiles rained down on Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Mariupol. Entire cities were wiped off the map, and innocent civilians were massacred, tortured, and kidnapped. All because Ukraine dared to be free. A huge thank you to Ukraine's heroic defenders, from the heroes of Mariupol who fought to the last bullet to the defenders of Bakhmut holding out against endless waves of Russian troops. This war has not just been about land, it has been about lives, families, and the right to exist. But Ukraine stood tall. Against all odds, the world said Kyiv would fall in 3 days. 3 years later, Ukraine is still standing, still fighting, winning. Yet today, there are those who want America to walk away. Supporting Ukraine isn't in our interest. Ukraine's fight is America's fight. If Putin wins, he won't stop at Ukraine. If we let dictators redraw borders by force, then the current world order is shattered, and the world will become more dangerous for all of us. This weekend, rallies will be held across the country in support of Ukraine. Go out and show your support. Call your representatives, speak out, because this isn't just about Ukraine. This is about what kind of world we want to live in. A world where democracy prevails, or one where tyrants win. Ukraine is still fighting. Will we? Thank you for watching Echoes of War Live. If you enjoyed today's news brief, please make sure to subscribe, like, and share, and comment your thoughts below. Your support is vital in helping us continue provide in-depth, fact-based coverage of these critical events. You can contribute through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the description box below. Huge thank you to everyone who has donated. Next time, we will cover shifts in global policy and what it means for Ukraine's fight for victory. So stay tuned, and most importantly, defend with Ukraine. God bless America, and Slava Ukraini!
Mercy. No mercy.
Предлагаю сложить оружие, сдаться, иначе по вам будет нанесен удар. Как поняли меня? Прием. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.